beginning part, kind of finishing saying everything right now.
Right.
But I will go ahead and stop talking here in a second. I'll do a really quick intro. Hey, welcome back. And then we'll go ahead and just start having the conversation from there.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Awesome. So I'm going to go ahead and stop talking here in a second, do the introduction, and then we'll jump back in. So, hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Coaching Uncovered podcast. My name is Chris Barry, and I'm going to be your host for today. Joining us, we have Ed Rankin. Ed, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Chris. How are you doing?
I'm doing amazing, enjoying my 2 days after Christmas and excited
Yeah,
to
there you
talk
go.
about some coaching businesses. So before we jump into specific questions about your business, what you have done, can you just give everyone that's either listening or watching an understanding of what you coach people on?
Yeah, the majority of my work is with senior executives and their teams around leadership issues, helping them become more effective leaders. And most of the work I do is one-on-one with executives. Occasionally, I get asked to do something like a team building intervention or something like that. I did a couple of those last year. But most of the time, what I do, what I really enjoy doing is just helping one-on-one people. I tell people I have like the best job in the world because I get paid pretty well to help people, and it's like I love it, right?
Yeah.
And it's just a lot of fun. I feel like I can have a big impact on organizations and individuals in their lives and help them become more successful. It's just I really enjoy what I do.
That's what I love. And I know, okay, I said I wasn't going to keep the tangents too much, but I'm going on the first tangent in the first minute. But
That's
one of my
that's good.
one of my favorite things that I enjoy about coaches and about this industry and everything, it's exactly that. It's the desire to help, it's the desire to serve, it's desire to uplift others. And at the same time, as you mentioned, we get rewarded very handsomely to go ahead and do that. But that's what I always just would describe to people when I actually first got involved within this industry. They say, "Oh, what do you do?" I'm like, "Look, I help people go from where they are now to where they want to be, and make that decision, make that jump, and get the change inside of their life. They get paid very handsomely to do that, and so that's what one thing I love, and also just the sentiment of it's a very common thing, amongst the coaches to kind of have that. So it's
Yeah.
fun.
I
So
mean, there'd be no reason. I think there'd be no other reason to get into this profession other than that. To me, I wouldn't know why would you would be here if you didn't. If that wasn't your motivation.
yeah,
And it's just a lot of fun. And I it's one of those things where I get to learn a lot too because I work with people in different industries and different functional roles within those industries. So I'm constantly learning myself, which is really fun. And I think as I learn more about other different industries, I'm able to bring that knowledge into my other coaching conversations. So a lot of the stuff I learn within, like for example, I'm working with an executive in a big property and casualty insurance company today, and so a lot of things that are going on there, I see reverberations of some of the things they struggle with in some of the other industries that I work with. Like I just finished an assignment helping a guy prepare to be CEO of a large health insurance company, and so they're two very different industries, property and casualty insurance, health insurance, but you see a lot of similarities there. So I just it's fun for me. Great,
yeah.
great, great job. Yeah.
It is the way I like to see it too, because even for myself, obviously, I help coaches grow their business, and I found it's like anything. You do more of it, you get more reps. It's like you become better at it, and
That's
so
exactly.
ultimately, I'm not only able just to see my own business, I'm able to see all these other coaching businesses. So like the more that we go ahead and we help coaches, like, oh wait, this worked really well with this, or hey, this didn't really perform as well as we would have liked to, and then now you're just improving and getting better, and it's like you're the I don't know, source or like you're able to improve your skills exponentially in comparison if it's only you, we'll say.
Exactly. Exactly.
Okay. So I know before we started recording and everything, you explained how, you're originally from North Carolina, you moved over to Dallas at 26, 27. And then you mentioned something how the city has changed, and the fact you used to be able to call and everything like that. I bring it up because I'm curious, what made you get started in this space? And when you first came and you were explaining that you would, call some of these big executives, is that how you got into it, or what was that journey?
No, that's a good question. Well, no, I had, when I came to Dallas, I was a human resource management professional with one of the large banks based
Mm.
here.
Okay.
And, and, uh, and so, but I stayed in the corporate HR world for the first 10 years of my career, I guess.
Mm.
And then, some things happened, changed my life, and I had a desire to create a business to try to create some wealth for myself and my family. I had children, and one of my kids was born with a lot of challenges, and so I felt like one of the things I needed to do was to try to create some wealth that I could leave behind for him because he will need some financial assistance for the rest of his life. And so I got into the consulting world to kind of learn what that was like. And then I saw an opportunity to create a company. And so I did that and back in the mid 90s and operated that for about 10 years. And then we sold that company. And as I was kind of thinking about what I would do next, I talked, a lot of my clients for that company were HR leaders for large corporations. So I called a few of them and said, I'm selling the business. Here's how it's going to impact the work that the company does with you. And what advice would you give me? And I'm thinking about what I do next. And several people said, Ed, this is back in 2005, 2006. You ought to think about this leadership development thing with the baby boomers retiring. There's going to be a gap there, and we're seeing a need for to help executives accelerate their development. And I didn't know much about coaching at the time, so I started doing some investigation and learned that coaching had become kind of a real, from most large corporations, become an integral part of their leadership development strategy. And
Mm.
so I looked around and found a great program to learn. So I completed a year-long graduate program in coaching. And then I
Mm.
stayed with that university and enrolled it over into a doctorate in human and organizational systems. And I've been doing coaching now exclusively, really since about 2007.
Okay.
And gosh, it's coming up on 20 years pretty soon. Huh?
Yeah, that is
So
true. So,
yeah,
so you got,
that
so
all
kind of,
seems like this seems like just a couple of years ago now, Chris.
yeah, that is true.
But
So
yeah,
you got,
so that's kind of the journey how I got here. Yeah.
mhm. Yeah. Well, it's funny how everything continues to morph and transform. It's not like it was just like, oh, I'm gonna become this, and that was it. It was like, okay, you started in this, and then you transitioned, and then you did this, and then it's funny how all of that happens. So
Yeah.
you've
Well, when I
obviously,
started, I honestly, I was really apprehensive about my ability to actually do it because I
mm,
didn't when I first started. Yeah, because I didn't, as I got into the academic study and learning about it all, and we started practicing in our training, I started realizing, wow, maybe I do have kind of the right skill set uh, to do this well. And then you start. I remember my first client, real client, and I would just I we the first meeting I had with him. Uh, he really had a really meaningful an awareness.
mm,
And I walked away from that. Just I was walking on clouds. I'm like, man, I can do this. And I saw he was a guy, a 50-year-old executive running $1 billion division of a Japanese conglomerate here in the US and really struggling with a lot of stuff. And it became real clear in our first session, we uncovered some things that were getting in his way. And he hired me immediately. It was just an introductory session with
mm,
him. I was introduced by we had a common friend and
yeah,
who introduced us. And so and I left there thinking, okay, this is it. I knew then that this is what I was supposed to do.
yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, and I hadn't
So,
finished the doctor at that point. I thought, okay, I'm going to do it. I'm going to go ahead and do this, and I'm
yeah,
committed to it. Yeah,
yeah,
so a PhD at age 60 is not easy to do, but
yeah,
it was
no,
worth
for sure,
it. Yeah,
for sure.
yeah,
So you've been doing it. Obviously, you have a lot of experience doing this for, I mean, heck, just this part alone for coming up 20 years. And
yeah.
obviously all the other consultancy and everything else you did before. what have been some of the highlights or favorite parts of your business? And then what have been some of the most challenging parts, would you say, over the past years of you doing this?
Wow, that's a really good question. Well, I think the, the most rewarding things have been more having more clients have the experience of like the fellow I just described. You know, when
Mm,
you see your clients, um, you see them become more effective. You see them have realizations, uncover barriers that they didn't realize were there, and you see them developing strategies to get what they want, and you help them execute against those, and you see them grow. It's just so rewarding,
mm,
and I mean, I could just do it all day long,
yeah,
and so that has been one of the greatest um, uh, rewards for doing this. And the challenges, I think there are quite a few actually, and I think the COVID thing was really tough for him because prior to COVID, I was paid to actually meet in person with most of my executives, and it was not uncommon for me to fly, took a couple days a week to be on an airplane, literally fly to DC to meet with a Northern Virginia client, or fly to San Francisco to meet with some people out there. Or I had clients in Austin and San Antonio, or Austin and Houston, so flying back and forth. Um, and so wasn't quite sure how this COVID thing was going to change all that. As it turned out, I think these applications like Zoom, which we're using today, and others have really helped. And I think everybody's kind of gotten over the mental hurdle of coaching can't be done, you know, virtually. And so I've seen it work. So I think that was a big kind of challenge for the profession to get through that. I think one of the things that's going to impact coaching, and I noticed we're using Fireflies here, AI. There's applications that I've been experimenting with on Zoom to help me become more effective coaching. So, and a couple of years ago, I made some presentations to ICF, International Coach Federation chapters, around AI and big data and how that was all going to impact the profession. So I think that's the next thing that coaching as a profession needs to be aware of. And I don't think it's anything that's going to I think AI will replace coaching at some levels. I think um, I'm aware of some great tools that have been in development out there. Some have been in existence for a long time now,
mm,
where you can really drive coaching to a smart device and and make it available to people who would otherwise not be able to afford a human coach. So I think that has is some value. I think uh, human coaches need to see how AI can augment and access and improve their offering. And I'm doing that now too. So I think the AI thing is probably the thing that we need to really pay attention to most. And then of course, in competence for growth, how do you grow your practice when there's so many people in the coaching profession? And, as you and I both know, I mean, there's a lot of qualitative differences among coaching, but there's still, for the general public, I think there's not a very good awareness of what they should expect out of coaching. So, anybody can be a coach, right? And there are a lot of people who are holding themselves out as coaches who probably should not be. Um, and so I think that kind of can be detrimental to the profession.
no,
Um, but I think through things like your podcast and others, it's kind of educational, and people can learn what coaching is, what it's supposed to be, what to expect from it, and maybe that'll help kind of level set things. I think corporations have gotten a lot more savvy about coach selection and who they will allow to be on their bench for coaches, and so they're looking more at experience and credentials and
yeah,
certifications and things like that. I think than they did a decade ago.
yeah.
So yeah.
And that's the hard part because there's obviously so many people out there that want to be coaches that are seeking to do right by people. And there's a handful that the optimistic side of me says, "Oh no, it's just all they're trying to help people." But there are some people that are just as you even mentioned. Why wouldn't you get in this profession if you weren't passionate about it? I think that there's some people that maybe the intentions are good, but it comes down to money in the end of, oh, I can make a lot of money and stuff. and a couple of bad actors, a couple of bad apples ruin the bunch. And so the overall sentiment behind coaching is that, oh, it could be a little scammy, or hey, it's not worth it, or it's just coach. Like, they say, oh, it's just coaching, another coach's coach or whatever that is. And so ultimately within that, I mean, that's even the reason why I kind of got started within making TD Coach, of having this podcast, of the community, all of it, because there are people, such as yourself, it's hard to hide genuine feelings, and overall sentiment. I want to help people and do everything. And so ultimately, as you just mentioned, as people get to know more about coaching, they get to understand what it truly is, rather than just the couple of people that are online showing their Lamborghini saying, hey, I'll show you how to make a ton of money. When they truly understand it, it's all that it really comes down to is just education. The way I like to explain is, I'm all for, because sometimes I'll trash traditional education, because I think for the ordinary person, the value proposition is there as much. The average college tuition is $100,000. Only 27% of people actually use their degree, let alone just even talking about the fact that you have. I remember, is actually a teacher of mine in high school. She was mid 40s, and I would talk to her, and she was explaining how she's still paying off her college debts.
Yeah.
And to me, that's
Yeah.
crazy. I think.
Yeah.
And so it's not that I'm against education, it's just there has to be a better way. And the better way I see that education is through coaching, through
Yeah.
people like yourself that have decades worth of experience and understanding of this field. And rather than trying to go to a university, they can come to you, you get paid handsomely. They're going to go ahead and learn this skill that then they can then leverage and utilize to make multiples of the money. And I mean, don't get me wrong, obviously we're talking about business applications of it, which is much easier to quantify from a monetary perspective. But then even other aspects too, like how can you quantify, or how valuable is you getting your health back? You getting a couple extra years because you're taking care of your body, that you can spend time with your family. We were talking about family before. Your
Right.
grandkids, walk your granddaughter down the aisle, like all these little things. Then you go to relationships. There's so many different applications of it. And it ultimately comes to understanding what is the best way that we can get educated. Because, and you got me all going on tangents today, don't you, Ed? But 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 even coming back to it, like if you were to strip everything away, for whether you love him or hate him, let's say Elon Musk as an example, if you take everything away from him, he'd still be able to go make a multi-million-dollar company in the next 90 days, even if you
Yeah.
took his brand away, just because he has the knowledge, he has the understanding of what it is.
Right.
So it really comes down to what we have inside of here. And that's why I'm so passionate about coaching, as you can probably tell as I got into my explanation. So
Yeah. 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 Well, it's a lot of fun, and I think more and more, I think it's also almost necessary now for most senior level execs. Um, I think a lot of the people that I've worked with in the last 3 or 4 years, their experience with me is the first time they've ever had a coach,
mm,
and I think um, it's as they kind of figure out what they experience it. I've seen a lot of people really kind of become strong advocates of coaching. You know,
mhm.
just because of having the experience and kind of know and feeling what it's really like, and having the experience of kind of understanding what benefits they can get from it.
Yeah, because they actually understand it, rather than sometimes the messaging behind coaching. Like, oh no, I don't.
Right, exactly. Well,
So
like the portrayal of life coaches on sitcoms, right? I can't remember. There's one. I can't remember that. Yeah, she was portrayed a life coach, and so they're not. They're usually, typically, the media is not very accurate in how they prescribe, how they describe things.
it's true. It's true. So you got started in the business, been doing it obviously for a while. We just talked about, some of the favorite parts, some of the most challenging parts, and a couple tangents led by me. One thing that a lot of coaches are curious just to know more about, because oftentimes it's one of the most difficult parts of running the coaching business. They love teaching people, but they can't stand the fact of finding the people, whether that be
Yeah,
marketing, sales, and all of that. So how are you currently generating leads for your business?
it's a great question. Just prior to this conversation with you, I spoke with uh, a, a fellow an entrepreneur who's got some new angles on using AI for content creation and webcasting and things, so podcasting. I had started my own podcast with a former client, And so just recently, just within the last couple of months. And so that's one thing I'm trying to do. When I was had a fairly successful run as an entrepreneur, and but that was back before that was I was one of the first in '94. Believe it or not, I was one of the first organizations I knew of that had a website
Mm,
in '94. That's when I started that business. And so back then, print media and radio and TV were still very much very influential. And I was fortunate to have found and engaged a really, really great media relations guy who constantly kept me in the news here locally, particularly, and even some national publications. They occasionally get quoted in the Wall Street Journal and things like that. And so that kind of added almost instant credibility to me,
mm,
And so, and we had, but it was a different business because we were doing human resource management outsourcing for large corporations with the business there. So it wasn't coaching, but we created it. I was kind of what somebody referred to me back then as the ubiquitous HR guy because
mm,
I was in local news a lot. I was on the radio a lot. Quoted in local publications.
mm,
Even I did a lot of guest editorial writing back then for the Dallas Business Journal. When American City Business Journals opened several years ago, they opened in Dallas, and the staff here was pretty lean. They didn't have a large staff, and so they were using a lot of guest editorial writers for stuff. And I've got to talk to my media relations guy. I think is when he helped set this up,
mm,
but he helped create a relationship with the editor of the Dallas Business Journal, which actually evolved into a friendship later. But
mm.
he would call me, on Wednesday and say, Ed, is there any way you can get me a 500 word piece on executive compensation tomorrow by close of business? And so I would stay up all night and write that. And so, but that gave me that visibility in this. But it's a totally different world now. How do you get that visibility now? The competition, the social media is so intense. I don't know about you, but I bet I get 15 inquiries every day on my messages on LinkedIn. Somebody trying to sell me LinkedIn lead generation or some kind of lead generation services. And so it's just eyeballs to get eyeballs. I think these days is really, really hard and challenging. But so I think it's a little bit of branding and marketing, right? So, and I think kind of so I don't know if we're going to do anything uh, with with marketing stuff with another provider, but I'm just something I've been thinking about.
Mm. So,
But I think, yeah, I mean, they're like guys like you who do things, who can help. I think, create, generate eyeballs on LinkedIn pages or eyeballs on websites. I think that helps for sure.
yeah. So it sounds like primarily, obviously, you have the podcast that you over the past couple months started, but a lot of the business that you're getting today, obviously, you've talked about, okay, maybe in the future, I want to add more eyeballs or do some of these different things that you said you've been looking into. But it sounds like the main things is leveraging all this credibility that you've had by being in business for decades, right? You obviously have the previous PR stuff that just has you kind of everywhere, especially in, the DFW area where you are now. And then I'm assuming just by being in this industry for so long and getting results for people, it's a lot more of kind of almost like referral, word of mouth is primarily what it
Yeah,
is.
most of my business does come from word of mouth referral, but occasionally I'll help people just kind of hit me blind,
Mm,
just cold on LinkedIn, and actually some of my more lucrative relationships have financial relationships in terms of business volume have been with. I was identified by one of my current clients was opening operations in Texas. They've hired a lot of their house out in California. They had hired some people and a woman in Colorado who was doing a lot of coaching work with the execs there in California. That they felt like they wanted coaches on the ground in Texas.
mm,
And so she literally, they paid her to identify coaches for Texas.
mm,
And so whatever, I met the basic criteria and we had a conversation. She referred me to them. And that's become one of my, from in terms of volume, one of my larger clients.
mm,
Um, right here. And I've had a few pretty good um, relationships that have people have found me on LinkedIn,
Mm,
just using
okay.
LinkedIn search criteria. Yeah, yeah, whatever criteria they're using, and
Yeah.
I've been contacted about. So, but I think so. LinkedIn's for me has been good. That's because I'm primarily interested in being hired by the corporations, not the individuals,
Mm,
and so it just works better for me for a variety of ways. And so most of the corporations, they're not hanging out on you. Most of the person who has the budget for coaching is the person in the corporation is really the person I want to contact with.
mm,
He or she usually is not hanging out on YouTube. They're not looking at YouTube or you know TikTok or any of those. They're looking on LinkedIn is where they're looking for me.
yeah.
So that's been so I think I've spent some time and energy on my LinkedIn profile. I think that's made a difference.
Yeah.
Uh, and so I would recommend that to other coaches. If you haven't fully exploited that, certainly do that.
Yeah. Hmm. So LinkedIn sounds like a massive tool. Obviously, I know you just mentioned I recommend that you dedicate the time to make a solid looking profile just for people who are going to look you up and everything. So let's say you've gotten someone from LinkedIn or any other medium that they say, "Hey, Ed, I'm interested. I saw your profile. I'm interested in having a chat." What does that process look like in actually taking that lead into actually like this is a paying client of mine? What's that entire sales process that you walk people through typically?
Sometimes it's been really interesting. Like one, been a very good client. She's a human resource executive. I did some work for her when she was at her previous employer. She's changed roles now and has contacted me again about helping her at her new with her new at her new place of work. And she hired me off of a phone call
Hmm.
the first time. Yeah, I literally believe. I think I think I saw like I responded to a LinkedIn message from her on a Sunday,
Hmm.
and I think she called me like Monday morning, like at 8 o'clock,
Yeah.
and then she hired me over on the phone without ever actually meeting to work with
Hmm.
one of the executives with her employer. So and that has and that assignment went well. He did well. They asked me to work with another woman there. She did well. Um, this HR executive said has now moved to another company, and she's got me in the queue to work with one of their execs. So,
Hmm.
and she and I have met personally now since then, but uh, sometimes you get hired without even actually meeting the person. It's been kind of
Yeah.
unusual. Yeah.
Yeah. I was about to ask that question because obviously you say that you prefer to be hired by the corporations, not
Yeah.
necessarily by the individuals. Many different reasons, I'm sure, from the fact of obviously deeper pockets. They are wanting to develop and invest in their personnel and everything. What are some, because even as I just kind of reflect, some of the difficulties that come within that is, for example, in this one instance, like this woman hires you, but this isn't the person who you're going to be doing the coaching for. It's this guy or woman that's the executive over here. Like, how does that work? And do you find that it causes some difficulties or challenges because this person isn't as bought in because they didn't pay for it or they don't want the coaching, but their superiors telling them, oh, well, you need to do that.
Well, yeah, you make a really good point, Chris. But I think typically I'm not. What would happen is um, the the HR corporate whoever's vetting the coach
Mhm.
would pick a couple of people and
Mm.
ask the potential coachee to visit with each of them and then make a decision.
Yeah.
And which I actually recommend that. I mean, although I think sometimes a coachee, if they've not experienced coaching before, they really don't know the right questions to ask.
Mm.
They're more thinking about, do I like this person? Do I like this potential? Uh, and do I feel compatible with him or her? And and I would argue that sometimes that's not always that important. You know, I um, I don't my clients sometimes, and I'll tell them, even in those initial meetings,
Hmm.
Don't make your decision simply on how affable you think I am, or how you know how well you think we get along. Because if I'm doing my job, you may not like me sometimes. I
Yep.
mean, I may push you in a session that you might think you might leave, you might hang up the phone and say, "Damn, I don't like that guy at all." Because so coaching's not always about feeling good.
Mm.
It's about moving in a direction that you want to move. And sometimes if a coach is doing his or her job well, they're gonna be a little provocative, and
Yeah.
depending on the circuit, right? And sometimes and challenge clients' assumptions, challenge clients' belief systems. I mean, that's what we should be doing.
Yeah.
But yeah, some client companies will just give me the name, or they'll introduce me to somebody and say,
You're working.
yeah. Or I mean, I think if the prospective coachee had a real problem with me, or if I had a problem, if I felt like I couldn't be effective, I would certainly say that, right? I would tell them, this is not the right assignment for me, because I'm interested in the long term with the, and so I'd rather walk away from one assignment that I don't think is going to fit well with me than to screw up my, yeah. And sometimes you can tell that early on,
Hmm.
but I price everything. I said, I asked for the first 3 months. I 6 month assignments. Asked for the first 3 months when we start the engagement. The second 3 months, 3 months into it. But if they want to cancel it, they can cancel it. So if the first 3 months
At the
we're
end of the
not,
3 months.
yeah, yeah, if we're not making progress at the end of 3 months, they're not obligated to continue paying me,
Mm.
because I don't, if we're not making progress, I don't want them to keep paying me. That's one of the things I like about this business is that it's kind of, it's out there, it's out in the open, it's up front, and people know whether they're improving or not, and the people around them know whether they're improving or not, and it's a I think I like a good clean transaction. I get paid well because I'm bringing good results. If I don't bring good results, then I don't deserve to get paid.
You you wouldn't be in the industry for this long if you weren't bringing good results. And that's kind of one of the things that is, as we talked about bad apples before, you have a lot of people that just come in, make a bunch of money, and then they leave and they don't care about their reputation, whatever. It's just got my money, I'm out. Someone
Right,
like you, you've been in this for decades
right,
and obviously you get results and it speaks for itself.
right, right,
So
right.
cool. Well, I'm sure me and you could probably have conversations for hours and hours. I tried to not go on too many tangents. Um, Before we go ahead and wrap everything up, for anybody that has really enjoyed your message and they want to connect with you, just to ask more questions or maybe even say, hey, I know someone who, is a C-level executive that I feel would be really great to have a conversation about possibly working with you. What's the best way? I have a good idea in my head based on what you said before, but what's the best way for people to get in communication with you?
Well, the quickest way would be edrankin.coach, my website, and there's a way to contact me there. Or if you forget edrankin.coach, you can find Ed Rankin on LinkedIn, and you can contact me there. And I think my email addresses and phone numbers are all on my LinkedIn profile too. So I'm happy to take phone calls from people if they want to give me a call.
Awesome. I like it. Well,
Yeah.
Ed, I appreciate having you on. It was a great conversation, and I look
Thank
forward
you,
to the
Chris. I
conversation
enjoyed it. I
again.
appreciate the opportunity. Yeah. And
Of course.
good, best of luck with your endeavor.
Awesome. I appreciate it. Awesome. So, everyone, I hope that you were able to get as much value as I did out of this specific episode of the podcast with Ed. There are a couple of things that I went ahead and wrote down as kind of my biggest takeaways. The first one is don't make your decision based on how you feel. It was kind of towards the end, Ed was saying that because good coaches, it's not always just sunshine and rainbows trying to make you happy with what it is. It's okay, you're telling me you're here right now, you want to be here. What are the steps that we need to do there? And oftentimes it's on the other side of a couple uncomfortable conversations, facing things that are not as easy to overcome. And our job as a coach is to help them go ahead and do that. So I think that's a very important mindset to have, number one, but something to also keep at the forefront of our mind because, of course, we always want to keep our clients happy, but the biggest thing that we're obviously looking to do when we work with our clients is getting results for them. So that's something that just really stuck out from what said. And then the second thing is also LinkedIn. when you really think about it, it's almost like your online resume, especially today
Yeah,
with, as we've
definitely.
talked about, the skepticism that comes with coaching. People are going to look you up online. And so, how can you go ahead and make sure that when people look you up online, whatever medium, obviously LinkedIn is a phenomenal source to do, but whatever medium, how can you make sure that you're seeming reputable? Not only in the fact of LinkedIn, Ed talked about, the PR stuff. If you look up Ed Rankin online, you're going to see a ton of different things. So if you're on the fence about it, you're going to see it and be, oh, wait, wow, Ed has this. Wait, what? What? And you're going to see this like, oh, yeah, I got to work with Ed. That's another massive part of, regardless of where you're starting in your coaching journey, obviously make sure we're always truthful within it, but how can you make sure that you are presenting yourself online and so that people know you? Because that's one of the biggest things that most coaches I know I speak with, they struggle with. They're really great at what they do, but people have no clue who they are. They're not generating leads. How can you expect to get business if nobody knows you, right? Or you're just this random person online. So that was the second thing that I really took away of Ed expressing, hey, you got to go ahead, and he's expressed his PR piece, number one, but then number two, the thing about, he recommends all the coaches go ahead and get their LinkedIn set up. I think it's a very smart piece of advice. So those are two of the biggest things that I took away from the call with Ed today. If you did enjoy this episode, make sure to go ahead and drop a like. If you would like to see more episodes like this, subscribe, and we'll see you guys on the next episode of the Coaching Uncovered podcast. That was awesome, Ed. I
Oh,
enjoyed
thanks.
the conversation and everything.
Yeah, you do a good job, Chris. You're good at this.
I appreciate it. It's I actually recently started this. I only started this about like 3-4 months ago, the Coaching Uncovered piece. And I'm gonna do this because I think I should be good on battery. But I'm using, if you know, did you notice how the difference of camera quality between, ooh, I just hit my knee, between this and this?
Oh yeah.
Like, so this is just my iPhone, by the way. And so
Wow.
what you can do is you can just plop your iPhone up, and like I have like a little tripod or something like that, and it makes it much easier. But I noticed that my said it was getting low on battery. So
Better audio, better video than the computer for sure.
oh yeah, for sure.
I'm on a computer. Yeah, I'm on an iPad. I mean, a MacBook Air.
Yeah, well, I used to go ahead and uh like bring an external camera and everything. And I normally have like a nicer mic. Honestly, I've just been traveling around a bunch, and I was like, okay, whatever, I'll be fine, even though the audio
Yeah.
is not perfect. I have like one of those like fancy looking mics and stuff like that. But it the video's nice. So
Yeah.
you're Dallas, you're saying, right?
Yes.
Okay. So outside, I don't believe you probably would have seen unless you maybe dug around my LinkedIn. Outside of the coaching business, I actually invest in multifamily real estate. And one of the biggest
Cool.
markets that we invest in is actually DFW. It's more secondary, tertiary, not like Dallas.
Yeah.
But my business partner lives over in Fort Worth, and I'm over in the area, not crazy frequently, but definitely every once in a while. So next time I'm there, I'll keep it in mind. Say, hey, what's up,
Yeah,
Ed?
I do that. My wife is in residential real estate here in the
That's
area too, by the way. Yeah,
interesting.
she's a Vietnamese immigrant. She's been
Huh.
in the United States in the 90s, but there are a
Yeah.
lot, Vietnamese is the third most frequently spoken language in Texas right now. Yeah, there are pockets of,
Really?
oh yeah, there's pockets of
Wow. I
yeah,
didn't know that.
Asians are the fastest growing immigrant group in Texas right now. They're outgrowing all the others. Anyway, she there's a big concentration, a couple of concentrations of Vietnamese in this area. One's in
Mhm.
Arlington and Grand Prairie, where she operates,
Okay.
and there's another in some area, a suburb called Garland,
Mhm.
and there's a lot of Vietnamese in there. But if you ever have any interest, Vietnamese are big into residential real estate,
Mm.
and
As in
she's
like
got
apartment
people
buildings
that
or more of single
invest,
family?
mostly single family.
Okay.
But she's got people that want to buy commercial real estate property. They want to buy multifamily.
Hmm.
A lot of people, a lot of money from Vietnam is coming to the U.S. now.
Interesting.
And yeah, she's got kind of like a pipeline to Vietnamese from California that come to Dallas looking to buy real estate here.
Hmm.
So anyway, keep that in mind if that,
I'll definitely keep it in mind for the future. I actually even have something now. So we are closing on a 91 unit property in Abilene, Texas right now.
uh,
And we'll go ahead. The returns are between 17 and 19%
yeah,
annualized over the expected. We're looking at like a 5 to 7 year hold is what it is. And the raise is $3.5 million. So we do obviously have different investors and people that are like, hey, yeah, we want to go ahead and work, but we literally just are finishing
And
due diligence like right
I,
now.
I,
So
I have my coach is a guy named Steve Strauss,
mhm.
and Steve likes to invest in real estate.
Okay.
And he just participated in a new apartment construction out in a little town where my lake house is, a little town 80 miles from here called Athens. And
Shut up. Athens, Texas.
oh yeah, well there's a Bogota, Texas. It's actually called Bogota here.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
Bogota, there's Athens, yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, any major European city, there's Paris. We're not, yeah,
Uh-huh.
Paris is not far from Athens.
I say it though. I do think it is funny how they do that. We own a property in Athens, Texas.
Oh, you do? Yeah, that's where my lake house is.
That's funny. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We
So
have
anyway, Steve likes those kinds of deals too. So if I
okay.
can introduce him to you if you want.
Yeah, if you want.
I think he put like 50 grand in that apartment out in Athens, in new construction.
Nice.
And yeah, I'm sure. I think he's probably already gotten his money back.
Yeah. Well, so the strategy that we go after primarily, we go not for like the actually this one is a little bit more of a nicer one, but it's
Yeah,
typically the markets that aren't as sexy. You know, like for example,
yeah,
like Abilene. I mean, Abilene is definitely growing, don't get me wrong, but it's not a
oh yeah,
Dallas. It's not an
oh yeah.
Austin or anything like
Well,
that.
you don't have as you don't. I mean, like in Athens, there's a lot of demand. There's probably not much. It's not much to meet the demand.
Correct. Well,
I
even
mean,
we had a
the banker that we financed my purchase out there. I talked to him, and he was talking to me. He said, "There's you wouldn't believe all the new construction going on in Athens, and it's coming from places. It's coming from California. New
yeah.
homes, people bringing, coming to, they're moving out because they want to be near a metropolitan area, but they don't
Yeah.
want to be in the metro area. So they can be
Mm,
in Dallas, where Athens is an hour and 10 minutes from where I'm sitting,
yeah.
and everything's cheaper out there. But you
Yeah.
could buy a really nice house out there for $300,000 or $400,000. It would cost you $1 million here.
Yeah.
And yeah, so a lot of people are moving to those areas because they can get a really good deal, and they still close enough to go to a Mavericks game, to go to a Cowboys game, to come in to go shopping, you know.
Hmm.
So
Yeah. No, it's been as I mentioned to you, my business partner, so it's myself and two other business partners. One of the business partners lives in Fort Worth, and so she definitely knows market a little bit better, but it's just the market we primarily do Oklahoma and Texas are our two biggest ones. And that's even the crazy part because I mean, as long as you're following the path of progress, stuff's growing in that direction. Obviously, I mean, you have over there, you have Athens that's growing, Longview, Tyler, you have all of
oh
these
yeah,
things over here that's
yep,
just it's
yep,
growing.
yep,
So
yep. Tower's a good
very cool.
city.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In regards to, I would actually be interested if it's something that he invests and he wants to. There's definitely in the fact of obviously we have this deal over in Abilene that we're going to be raising for. We're just finishing due diligence, so we'll probably start the proper raise in about probably like the next 2-3 weeks is what we're looking at. So in regards to that, or even just future ones, and if he wants to invest, it would make sense. So how would you like to? Would you like me to give you my contact info?
Yeah, send me that. Just send me an email with your contact info, and then I'll forward it to him,
Cool,
and I'll introduce you guys that way.
that works. Awesome.
I'll tell him that you and I've talked to because like he long story, but I mean he attended a city council meeting in Athens one time just to see what was going on, and this young developer, I mean he's like a 22-year-old guy that had this
Mhm.
idea for this apartment, was coming to the city for some sort of variance or something,
Mhm.
and so Steve said he went to lunch after the city council meeting, and the guy was in the restaurant, so he walked over to this guy,
Mhm.
and the guys invited him to participate in the deal. So
Oh yeah,
I think he wrote a check for 50 grand, and so he was
nice.
pretty happy about the whole deal. Yeah,
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And even
yeah.
if he's wanting, it sounds like he's wanting to get more involved in investing too. Not only,
I
not really.
don't think so, but
Okay,
he might. But anyway, he's a good guy. He's a highly experienced coach. Good guy. He'd
nice.
be somebody to
Awesome.
talk to. He'd probably want to do a podcast with you. Maybe that's the way to approach him, Chris. Ask him if he wants to do a podcast.
No, honestly, I would enjoy that too.
I'll introduce you just
Sure.
and suggest that.
Yeah, that works. If you want,
Yeah,
I'll ask him about the podcast, but then also even if you want to plant
yeah,
the seed of the other thing, I'll say I'll throw
yeah.
it out there, just even like I
Of
did with
course.
you. Of like, here's what I do if
Yeah,
you
of
want.
course. I'll do
So,
that. Yeah.
cool.
But hey, I
I like
need
it.
to run, but thank you
Yeah,
again.
of course, absolutely.
Stay in
wanted to go
touch.
ahead and say one thing because I'm sure you probably have a call too. I have a couple of questions and even ideas for you within the business. I know that you talked about the LinkedIn side of things and doing the marketing. I have a couple of ideas that I feel could be helpful. Would you like to go ahead and hop on like 30 minutes? I'm not going to sell you. I'm not going to try to do anything. I just
Yeah.
didn't have a couple of ideas
Yeah.
for
No,
you.
I'd like to hear what you think. Yeah. Like I said, I blew a bunch of money on LinkedIn lead generation a couple of years ago, got nothing for it. So
Hmm.
and what I think I learned is that I'm not a B2C player.
Hmm.
And so the challenge is finding the people on LinkedIn, identifying that HR executive who's got the purse strings for coaching
Hmm.
and getting them, engaging them.
Yeah.
And we just struggled with that, you know.
Hmm. Okay.
But
We can
anyway,
talk about that.
yeah, let me learn more. Yeah, so send me.
Yeah, I have a couple of ideas. The whole rest of this week and next week is kind of crazy. If you have your calendar in front of you, something like a Central Time, that would be 3:30 Central on Thursday, January 2nd. So January 2nd, Thursday at 3:30 Central. Would that work for you?
Let me see here. Damn it. What's the date again?
January 2nd. It's a Thursday.
Second at 3:30.
3:30 Central.
Yeah. Can you do anything earlier in the day? I've got a
Uh,
big gap on that day.
I can do a two. Is it really
Or
that early?
another day to do something earlier.
Yeah, we can do if you want on Friday the 3rd. I'm free at 10 a.m. your
On
time.
Central.
Then 10 a.m. Central, correct?
That's perfect.
Okay, cool. I'll go ahead and I'll send it over then. So Friday the 3rd, and then just the same email as this one, right?
Yes.
Cool. Okay, awesome. I know you got to run. I'll let you bounce.
All right. Thanks,
I will
Chris.
send that over. Great chatting with you.
Yeah, same here.
Send you the email with my information for your friend. I believe you said his name was Steve.
Steve Strauss. Yeah.
Ah,
Straus. Yeah.
okay, cool. I'll send that over to you and we'll be in touch.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Thank you,
Okay,
Chris. See
have a good one. Of course.
you.
Bye.
Bye bye.